Morning, Ali. Morning, Dunk. Morning, Stuart. Morning, Rosie. Morning, Lenny. Morning, Karen. Morning, Donald. Morning, Marlon. Morning, Kirsty. Morning, Barbara. Morning, Ewan. Morning, Paul. Sheena. Morning, Wolf Peck. Morning, John. Morning, John, the van driving legend. Still a legend, a god. A driving god, no less. Morning, Bob. Morning, Tommy. Morning, Marlene. Morning, Doug. Morning, Ian. Morning, Stephen. Morning, Baby Bump. I hope it's a joyous occasion when it comes. Morning, John. Morning, Martin. Morning, Graham. Morning, Margaret. Ricky. Morning, James. Morning, Stephen. Morning, Eric. Hi, Karen. Getting there. Morning, Alexander. Morning, Hammy. Morning, Lynn. Morning, Jill. Right then, that's enough. Nearly 100 of us on board, so let's get this broadcast underway. It's Indy Truck TV, out the truck and at home in his office in Sargon, North Lanarkshire, where it is clearing up. A bit dark this morning, to be honest with you. There is some showers in the forecast and it's 5 degrees. Okay, that's the weather forecast for Sargon, North Lanarkshire. You want to know what the weather's like where you are? Look out your own bloody window. Alright, this is a news review from the Colony of Scotland for the 20th of the 12th, 2022. The Tuesday started with 3 major topics in the rags. Clarkston's weird sexual misogynistic fantasy. PPE firm linked to Lady of the Undergarment, Michelle Moan, to be sued. And the Gender Recognition Act Reform Bill, second reading. Okay, now on Clarkston's weird sexual fantasy. I think the old garment has lost the plot, to be honest with you. And what was really interesting about that article was the fact that some idiot editor at Murdoch's Rag thought it was a good idea to print that rubbish. Clarkson's in the press saying, sorry folks, saws. Didn't mean you used to find out, am I right? Misogynistic, racist, gammon, sexual pervert git. But as I say, the fascinating thing about it is that the paper actually run the bloody column. The paper's claiming that nobody read it before it went to print. Never heard so much crap in all your life. Now, on the PPE scandal, yep, sue them. It's time these people are held to account. Right now, England is costing UK white taxpayers $100,000 a day to store dodgy PPE, provided by these crooks, all right? But don't just go after the dodgy businessmen stroke women. Go after the dodgy lords, ladies, and politicians who enabled them, who gave them the contracts and who took backhanders issuing those contracts. Have to get right to the very heart of it. And that includes people like wee Govey and Hancock in the dock. I know the rest of them that were involved with the VIP lanes. Right, on the second reading of the Gender Reform Bill, we'll get to that a wee bit later in the report. Okay, right, now it is a silly season, folks. There's a lot of fluff out there, but there is a couple of things up of relevance which we'll get to further into the report. But there is some other stuff out there which, of course, is relevant to our everyday life. So let's look at that. Okay, moving on. Tuesday here in Scotland, it started with another bad NHS failing story, according to the mainstream media. Right, fetal alcohol disorder is going undiagnosed. The order is often being misdiagnosed as attention deficit disorder. Okay. Now this is according to Professor Moira Plant, alright, and she's on BBC Pravda Radio Scotland to tell us that it's not a good idea that our healthcare professionals are no good at recognising this fetal alcohol disorder. Apparently, the treatment for fetal alcohol disorder and for attention deficit disorder are different, so it's something else that the NHS is going to have to grapple with and get a grip with, and healthcare professionals, according to this professor, are going to have to get up to speed with. Alright, the fetal alcohol disorder occurs when a mother drinks alcohol during pregnancy. Drinking during pregnancy can lead to physical and mental problems for the child after birth. Okay, now according to the good professor, as I say, the treatment's different, so we have to get a grip on it. Alright, so I guess it's something else that our healthcare staff are going to have to get a wee grab on. Now, there's no idea of the numbers, how many people are being born with fetal alcohol disorder, but I don't imagine it would be that high these days. Maybe back in the 70s and the 80s when young women didn't know any better and would drink during pregnancy. But I haven't run across any woman in the last 20 years who was pregnant who was taking a swallow. So I don't know how many people out there have got this disorder, but apparently our healthcare professionals, according to Professor Plant, need to get a handle on it. As I say, I don't imagine there are that many people out there with it these days. Right, moving on Tuesday, and a good news story for the Isle of Harris. The Isle of Harris Distillery secures funding to expand into 20 new international markets, including the US, Canada, France, Germany, and other European states. Okay. It's also to expand the storage facilities on Harris with 2 new warehouses, which will hold 9,000 casks of gin and whiskey. That's the equivalent of 2.75 million bottles of lovely booze. And of course, all that lovely revenue, which is going into the coffers of our Imperial Masters next door. No wonder our Imperial Masters call our national drink and their distilling capabilities as liquid gold. There's more tax revenues sitting in Scottish whisky bonds still to be sold than what there is gold in the Bank of England. No wonder our colonial masters won't let us go. We'll get a wee bit better at that when we get into the report. Okay, right, moving on Tuesday. Moving on Tuesday, and we're told about a historic bridge connecting Scotland and England. And the reason why we're told about it is because it's called the Union Bridge. Now, apparently this 202-year-old chain-link bridge had been dismantled in order to be restored and then rebuilt and repaired. So apparently this historic chain-link bridge between Scotland and England will be reopened again in 2023. Now, the bridge runs between Fishwick in Scotland to Harrogate in Northumberland. Alright, now, as I say, the whole point of this stupid story is because it's called the Union Bridge, and it's supposed to be a dividend of being in the Union that there is a bridge between Fishwick and Harrogate. Wonderful stuff. Just one more place we're going to have to put a border crossing. Anyway, the bridge is to open again to cross to foot traffic, cycle traffic, and car traffic in 2023. As I say, there was no point to the story at all, apart from the fact that it was supposed to be a union dividend. Okay, but as I say, it's just one more place where we're going to have to build a border crossing point. So there we go. An old chain link bridge is a benefit to the glorious union, says our colonial masters. Alright, also Tuesday, A85 Glasgow Oban Road and rail line closed due to landslide at the falls of Cruachan on the shores of Loch Awe. Now, the landslide that happened on the lower slopes of Ben Cruachan deposited 100 tons of rock, mud and plant life onto the road and rail track. Alright, now Bear Scotland, the road agency and Network Rail are assessing the situation on the lower slopes of Ben Cruachan to see if they can safely get and clean the road and the railway up. So, no trains to open for Glasgow for a while, and check Traffic Scotland website for diversions if you're going by road. Okie dokie. Right. Also, Tuesday, Third Teachers Union has announced planned strike action in January. Members of the NASUWT, whatever the hell that stands for, will strike on the 10th and 11th of January 2023. And this is in the ongoing dispute with COSLA and the councils and the Scottish Government over pay conditions. Now, the teachers are no different from anybody else. They're wanting an inflation levelling or an inflation budgeting pay rise. That's not what's going to happen, of course. What's going to happen is they'll settle somewhere around about 7.58%, and the services will be cut. There'll be less classroom assistants, less ancillary staff, and bigger class sizes probably as a result. But as we say, and as I've said all the time, this isn't England. Our imperial masters hold on to the magic money tea, so we can't produce money to buy people more, and we're having to work within a non-inflation adjusted fixed budget. So when people get what it is they want, I said fish week, John, no press week, fish. John says to be 100-mile long bridge. No, fish week, John. FISHWICK. All right, it's in the borders. Anyway, where were we? Aye. So as I was saying, yep, they will get a settlement, but there will be cuts to services, folks. That's just the way it is when you're a colony. You're on a fixed budget when you're a colony. And this fixed budget isn't being adjusted for inflation. And of course, our imperial masters tell us that they're being extremely generous to us, which of course is a lot of bullshit. Right. Moving on, Tuesday, and down that road, in the Imperial House of Thieves and Carpetbaggers, head of the Tory crime syndicate, at this point in time, because they change quite quickly these days, Rishi Sunak is in front of the Commons Liaison Committee. In this committee, the Prime Minister faces the chair of all the committees. You know, the Health Committee chair grills him on health issues. The Education Secretary down that road grills him on education issues. You get the point, right? They cover all the departments: defence, education, working pensions, all that sort of thing. The heads of all these committees, including the Union Committee, sit on this and grill the PM or Sunak, right? Anyway, what did we learn from his appearance in front of that committee yesterday? Because this is the important part. What we learnt was he's a chancellor, but he's slick as hell. He wasn't really up in his brief, but he was slick as hell. But the main points, he wants a British standard on numeracy apparently, and is going to introduce a bill to set a British standard. Joanne Cherry has to remind them that it won't be a British bill, and it can't be a British bill. Sunak, being a bit thick, bit slick, didn't quite get it. He says, I know, it'll be a British bill. And Joanne has to point out to him, no, because it won't apply in Scotland. Education is fully devolved, and any standards that you introduce will only apply to England and Wales. At that point, Sunak's wee light comes on and goes, oh, ding, forgot about devolution. Forgot Scotland was a different country. He says, aye, but we'll call it British anyway because that's England after all. Basically. On the State of the Union, when it came to the State of the Union Committee, and it was Pete Wishart who chairs that, Pete Wishart says to Sunak, listen, 6 polls in a row in Scotland says the settled will of the Scottish people is now for independence. What's the route map for Scotland to have that say to express its view? Sunak did the usual push. He went on to tell us what it was the Scottish people wanted. Never fucking asked the Scottish people what they wanted. They told us what we wanted. We want our 2 governments to work together, apparently. The 2 government bit was to impress upon us that we are a colony. And that our 2 governments, we want them to work together to sort out the cost of living crisis created by Sunak and the fucking idiots in Westminster in the first place. To sort out the energy crisis created by their mates profiteering in the energy market and no being taxed. And he also, as I say, he wants us to, the 2 governments to work together. And that's what the Scottish people want, apparently. They want us to concentrate on the Ukraine war, cost of energy crisis, cost of living crisis. What a lot of bollocks. They never asked us what we wanted. And Pete's just sat there and tell them what the settled will of the Scottish people has been over the last 6 polls. Wishart then tells them, listen, you can try and run away to this all you want, but you're not going to be able to dodge it, because opinion towards Scottish independence is only going to rise as things get worse in the UK. Sunak, once again, he looked startled. He looked well aware of the figures. He knew it was something that was going to have to be dealt with, but decided he wasn't dealing with it on his watch, and said, the two governments is what the Scottish people want, reiterating 2014 outcome. Wouldn't he give a route map? Nothing. Refused to answer the question. Acknowledges the fact that he knows it's something that's coming to a fucking head. He just hopes it doesn't happen in the next 2 years on his watch. But Pete points it out to the Westminster, the Prime Minister, and everybody else in Westminster, that this is going to have to come to a head. You're late, Barbara. Noticed it. So they know that this is coming to a head down there, kids. And Wishart made that quite clear. Sunak knows it's coming to a head and all. Wishart also tells him, this is what Alistair Jack says, sustained opinion for independence in the opinion polls. If it walks like a duck, if it sounds like a duck, and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck, there will be a referendum. Wishart says, well, that's what your Secretary of State says. What have you got to say, Mr. PM? Mr. PM dodged the question again. Scotland's two governments emphasising their colonial status to Mr. Wishart. But it was quite clear, although he's slick, he's stupid, he knows fine well, and they in Westminster know fine well, that this constitutional wrangle is coming to a head. Now, the third thing that we learned, and this is a reason why we have to speed up this process, like Angus, Brendan McNeil, David and I advocate and use a Scottish plebiscite election to get effect, is because it becomes clear after a grilling for Joanne Cherry and the Justice Committee that they intend to scrap workers' rights, leave the European Convention on Human Rights, introduce a British Bill of Rights, so that they can break an international treaty which they are obliged to abide by, and that is the Convention on the Rights of the Asylum Seeker or Refugee. Sunak makes it clear by hook or by crook in the committee that he will get his bill through to change the law to allow them to start shipping people to Rwanda or anywhere else. So the UK will be leaving the European Convention on Human Rights. That will see all our human rights shredded. A British Bill of Rights, which won't be any rights at all, because we've seen the way they're suppressing people in England and Wales. And of course, us here with our colonial status. But there's pretty scary stuff coming down the track. So that more or less bolsters what Pete's Wishart has to say. Joanne also says to him, you do realise if you do try to introduce a British Bill of Rights, you're going to have to need a legislative consent motion from the Scottish and Welsh governments, because the European Convention on Human Rights are written into the Scotland Acts 1998, 2012 and 2016. Sunak doesn't give a shite, because as we know, the Sewell Convention means nothing. So even if Scotland doesn't give legislative consent, and even if Wales doesn't give legislative consent, they're going to do it anyway. So it's time to get out. It is time to get out. So that's what we learned yesterday in that cross-party committee. We also heard them dodge questions about increasing benefits, increasing pensions, and all sorts on the different issues. But these are the main ones. Scotland, shut up your back in your box. Introducing British bills to do with education when education's devolved. But we do know through the internal market bill, they intend to level up the education market right across the UK. They are basically centralising everything, and if we don't get to effect, Holyrood will be nothing more than a county council. Simple as that. Right, moving on. Moving on, Tuesday, back here in Scotland, along there in Holyrood, the Gender Recognition Act Reform Bill hit stage 2, its second reading. Now, it was a fiery debate, 150 amendments, folks, were laid, and they went through most of them. Hey! You know, the age at which you can apply for gender recognition has been lowered from 18 to 16, but that sort of makes sense, because here in Scotland, we have, for a long, long time, recognised in our legal process that the age of criminal consent is 12, criminal awareness is 12, and that you become an adult at 16. So, if you're an adult at 16 for joining the army, paying tax, everything else, why wouldn't you be an adult at 16 for gender recognition certificate? You know, it's a bit hypocritical of people who say, well, you can be a soldier and pay full taxation at 16, you can get married at 16, but you can't change your gender. It would be a bit hypocritical. I mean, we let 16 and 17 years olds vote in Scotland because, let's face it, that's the age where they become adult in the eyes of the law. So that's happened. So now you can start applying for the process at 15, and legally, when you become the adult at 16, you can change your gender, apparently. As I say, whether you agree or disagree with it, that's the facts, all right? There was also an amendment led by the Tories that wanted to stop criminals. It was too general, and that's why it was rejected. They wanted to stop criminals for getting gender change certificates. Now, that amendment was voted down, as I say, because it was too broad. And it was another amendment was voted through to say that criminals who are sex offenders will be assessed before they can apply for a certificate. You can't just block ban everybody. I mean, a housebreaker who wants to become a female housebreaker for a male housebreaker, they're no sex offenders. So, the initial bill weighed down by the Tories, where there was a hoo-ha about it when it was voted down, was too broad. The later amendment brought in by the SNP to say that people convicted by sexual crimes will be assessed to see if they're a danger before they can apply for gender change certificates. Now, what's this all about, this thing? Well, it's all about the idea that male criminals who are perverts, will apply for certificates to change their gender so that they can go to women's prisons, apparently. Apparently, it's also happened. But that's something that doesn't seem to be very common in the 22 countries where this legislation that we're about to put through is already in place. Now, the Gender Recognition Act Reform Bill will be debated a little bit more today to finish clearing the backlog of 150 amendments, and then it will have its final vote and will pass into law. Now, whether people out there agree or disagree with it, the majority here in Scotland agree with it. The majority in the party, because it's a cross-party piece, and it's likely to be voted through by Labour, the Lib Dems, the SNP, and the Greens in the Parliament. Some of the SNP MSPs are going to abstain. The Tories are going to vote against. But it's a democracy. It's a cross-party consensus. So later on today, the Gender Recognition Bill, the Gender Recognition Act Reform Bill will go into law. And then we'll find out whether it's a good piece of legislation or a bad piece of legislation. Because, as you know, any future government, or even this government, could reform that bill, or could pull it at any point, any time later, if it's not working out. So if it's a bad piece of legislation, a couple of years down the line, we'll know it's a bad piece of legislation. That legislation can be repealed. So if you've got your knickers in a twist over this one, you're not thinking logically. Now, we've seen bad bits of legislation repealed before, like the football bill. I don't think it was that bad a piece of legislation, but it was. It was turned down. All right, the final piece of news for yesterday for us folks is that a broadcaster, giant broadcaster here in Scotland, Derek Bateman, passed. I'm sorry to say. Bateman started off as a young guy in the late 60s at the Scotsman, went on to work in Scotsman and the Herald, and he can't remember the paper he went on to be the editor of. He then went on to join the BBC in the 80s, where he was a BBC political director a wee bit later on in his career. But he was a presenter at Good Morning Scotland for many, many years, and he left the BBC in 2013. Now, we all know he didn't leave the BBC on the best of terms, because Derek was pro-independence and he knew what was going to be happening coming out of that place in Pacific Quay. Derek went on to be a founding member of Newsnet Scotland, which still goes on today, and it's a pro-independence sort of blog site, news site. They're saying Derek will be missed. He was an influential voice in a movement. Right up there. So, our thoughts are with Derek's family this morning. Okay. Now, let's have a wee look and see what the Rags have got to say. It's silly season, so Christ knows what we're going to get in the Rags, folks. So here we go. This is because of what's going on in England, by the way, so we're going to have to put up with this same crap here. Because as we know, our hospitals are under pressure too, and a couple of health boards have asked people to stay away. But in England right now, the ambulance drivers are on strike, and the photograph of the Times is a picture of an ambulance being driven by a soldier. Ambulance drivers in Scotland are on strike, and ambulances are not being driven by soldiers in Scotland. Okay, so the Times has stay away play as A&E struggles after cold snap. That's what it does. And of course, we've got nurses strikes in England and Wales and Northern Ireland, and ambulance strikes in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. The Scottish Daily Express has just don't go to A&E this Christmas. Don't do that, Rag. The Herald has warning to avoid A&E amid Christmas of chaos. The Eye has MSP's back plan to allow 16-year-olds to change gender. No taxation without representation, whether you're a trans person, straight person, gay person, bisexual person, whatever. If you're old enough to pay tax, you're old enough to be represented in any field, especially here in Scotland, where 16-year-olds are considered to be adults. The Scottish Daily Mail has J.K. Rowling leads savage criticism of MSPs as they reject gender reform safeguards with controversial bill set to become law today. No, they didn't. I've just explained to you what safeguards they put in place when it came to this idea of men going to women's prisons. The Daily Telegraph has Scottish teens as young as 15 can begin process of legally changing their sex. Well, when they become 16, they're adults in the eyes of our law, in the eyes of our people, and they're old enough to pay tax. The Scotsman has no rift in SNP and says Flynn as he backs indirect election. The National has Flynn vows I will make the voice of Scotland heard. FM best politician in Europe according to Mr. Flynn. MPs close-knit and focused according to Mr. Flynn. And stunts won't achieve aims, so no stunts in Westminster. The Daily Record has, as frontline workers across the country fight for a decent wage, PPE Round Piermont is staying at 6k a night hotel in Alps Resort. Dancer, Prancer and Chancer is the headline. The Metro has Christmas travel misery. Train drivers are going to strike. Where's a star? What's a star got for us today? We've got a star today. Aye, and the star. What's the star got? And the Star's got a football story. We looked at fans convinced Argentinian hero scored winner thanks to Heavenly Ender's tattoo. The hand of Sonia. Apparently, somebody's got a tattoo in their arm with somebody called Sonia. And that's what made him score the winning goal. Oh, whatever. Mental, this stuff. The Star of mental, Rag. Right. That's what I've got for you today, folks. And I hope you found it interesting. I hope you found it informative. Good news story in there for Alan Harris. Bad news story in there for Trafford up the West Coast. And a wee mixed bag of everything else. Okay. But as I say, Sunak's appearance at that committee yesterday was pretty informative, folks. If you haven't seen it, you can jump onto my timeline and scroll down. It's on the YouTube link to that committee is there. All right, you'll be able to watch it back. Some of it was pretty hairy. But what we did learn is Sunak is a slick operator. But behind that slick operating is somebody who's not out to up his brief. And somebody that's not that bright, to be honest with you. But watch it yourself, draw your own conclusions. Okay, that's what I've got for you today, folks. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you found it informative. All right. Now, remember, support the independent media, support Broadcasting Scotland, support Independence Live, Indie Live Radio, Caledon Media, and Cruise Radio, the iScot magazine, and the national newspaper. Support independent bloggers and bloggers. And if you've got, excuse me, a crowdfunder on the go, and you've got a shekel or two to spare, throw them in the pot. My wee coaster. It says a you yes here on it. Well, it turns out the majority of us are now. So, there you have it. All right. So, as I say, independent broadcasters, you've got a crowdfunder on the go, you've got a few shekels, throw it in the pot. I don't want your money. If you're going to share this on Facebook, give me 5 minutes when it's finished to change it to public. If you're on YouTube and sharing it, share away. If you're on YouTube watching it, press the like button, bell notification button, subscribe button. You'll get notification each time we go live. Thank you very much for joining us today, folks. We'll be back tomorrow today or again. Oh, don't forget, follow the last couple of bits of guidance on the pandemic because we're in the flu season right now. Hospitals are under pressure. Clean hands and surfaces regular, face masks, and in closed public spaces. If you're not feeling well, mask up, show a wee bit of social conscience and a bit of concern for your neighbours. All right, have a nice day. See you all again tomorrow.